Give it a minute. Give it a minute. Give it a minute. Give it a minute. Okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Speakeasy.
I'm Zach.
And I am Jake.
We are the Dirt Road Men.
The Dirt Road Men.
I was talking about earlier to you about getting a new hat.
Uh-huh.
The number one reason I thought about getting a new hat is I spent so much money on this one, and I'm like overly careful with it, and I'm not comfortable wearing it doing anything.
if we're standing here, it's okay.
Yeah.
But walking about, no? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know how that goes, man.
I'll put it back on. But, yeah. I didn't even spend the full amount of money that rings in my head when I look at it, but at one point, too much money was out of my account, and I did not appreciate it, so.
I understand that.
This video that we were doing, yes, do you need something? My wife has decided to come watch this video, evidently. Want to say hello? No? Why? Because you're in the PJs?
Dirt Road Men now in front of a live studio audience.
Perfect. If only we could get Momo here.
Oh, man.
We need to get him in a video soon. That's
This
harsh.
is the laugh track, not the boo track.
By the way, your Roy Benavidez video surged to the front of the pack.
Really?
Yeah, it has been. It got a bunch of views. I think it's been viewed over 300 times.
That is the one video that I am most disappointed in, like my choppy talking in front of a camera, trying to read.
It's hilarious. Anyway, so this video is going to be a talk video on tribalism, more specifically, however, the importance of tribes and the positivity that you can take from the developing tribalism in the U.S. And I don't think it's developing tribalism, if you want me to be honest.
You don't think what?
It's developing tribalism.
Okay.
I don't think that we were all functioning as one community as much as we think we were. Because without the interconnectivity of social media, really your only encounters were your immediate area and people you saw on TV.
Well, and yeah, and there were, back in like 1700s, early, before that, when Native American tribes were really the only prominent thing in the United States. Yeah, they would have like small tribes, spotted all over, and every once in a while, they would trade within each other, but they were
would also
definitely
go to war with each other.
Well, yeah, but they were definitely separated.
Yeah, and even before, like, the major cities would be separated, and then there'd be their suburbs, but they still kind of centered around those cities, so it would be like one community. And then we were all one country, and it did help that we all had that one common thread of TV, whereas now everybody has their kind of own on-demand people they like to watch as opposed to specific TV shows.
Yeah, now, instead of getting... You don't have to have both sides of a story anymore. You can just watch the one side of everything.
Yeah, well, and that's actually a problem with our media stations, too, is they tend to be very one-sided. And they may have been all the time. It's just easier to see now with the infinite visibility that the internet provides.
Yeah.
However, a lot of people have looked at this tribalism as bad for the fabric of our country, and I would like to argue that we could actually use it to our advantage to make our country better. As long as we understand that paramount, first and foremost, we're Americans. Beyond that, we can fraction into tribes and be okay. The trick is, the one problem that I do see in the tribalism is we seem to be losing sight that we are all Americans sometimes.
Yeah, the only time, like in our lifetime, the biggest time I can think of where everybody kind of tribed together.
Yeah, as Americans.
As Americans was immediately after the attacks on 9/11.
Yeah, and for a couple years, really, Bush had like everybody's support because it was like, yeah, go in and get them. I don't care where they're hiding. I don't care what country they're in. I don't care where they are. Find them and make them pay for hitting us.
Yeah, and like within like actual like smaller scale. I mean, it was like that, you know, like this everywhere. But like within communities, like if somebody didn't have something, it was just like, okay, here you go. Like I'll help you out just because.
Yeah, and the joke that Robin Williams made was even in New York City for like a year or two. It was just like everybody was like, "Hey, how are you doing today?" Mm-hmm. Which is something you get a lot in the Midwest, and it's weird to people from the coasts. And it was a couple years before they were back to like, "Yeah, fuck you, asshole."
Which is just their way of saying hello. How are you?
Pretty much. But then going back a little further, now that I've mentioned the tribalism of today. We both read a book recently, and I've done some further studying on it, and I know you watched the author of that book on Rogan a little bit, not the whole thing, because his interviews are insanely long.
I watched a little bit of that, and then I've seen a couple of his other talks. Mm-hmm. More talking about...
Yeah, you sent me his TED Talk.
Yeah. More talking
this
about...
This is Sebastian Junger, by the way. I don't think we've said his name.
That's weird.
I was leading up to it, and then you wanted to say your thing, so I figured I'd get that in and let you keep going.
Okay.
I've watched some of his stuff.
Yeah, but what got me looking into it was popped up on like YouTube or something, and it was like why veterans miss war.
Yep.
And kind of led down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and a lot of it is this shared brotherhood, this cohesion, social fabric, you could say, that bonds men together, people together. When I say men, most of the time I mean humans as a species.
Yeah, man.
But but also actual like males. He really talks about the community that the military builds that's hard to find in civilian life, especially nowadays when everybody's on their phone. You don't have to say hi to the guy that you meet on the street or on the bus or something to pass the time.
Yeah.
You can just look at your phone. Because it's not like everybody always carried around books back in the day.
Well, I saw a really interesting photo that kind of touched on that a little bit. It was a picture, I think it was on like Wall Street or Broadway or something. Mm-hmm. And it was a picture of modern day. Yeah, modern day, and everybody's on their phones. And then it was a picture of, in like the 1940s or something. Everybody's looking at a newspaper.
Yep. Yeah, so that's another thing that I think we overblow the problem a little bit.
Yeah.
However, it is true that they come home and they don't find that same sense of brotherhood. And I do notice, not just here, and actually less so here, but even in the tight-knit community where you live and we both lived, neighbors weren't as friendly as they were when I was growing up. We knew everybody on our block. Yeah. And even if we didn't get along, we would help each other out in times of problem. I remember when our buddy's mom died in 5th grade.
Yeah.
Like, the whole neighborhood brought them so much food that they didn't have to cook for like a month.
Yeah.
And I remember we went over there, and I wanted to take soda for my friend and his brother and all of them. And my dad also brought them some beer because he figured they might need some. And you don't see that as much in a lot of communities anymore. And you don't even see that as much in the community we grew up in. And that is a problem. However, one thing a lot of businesses have done, and a lot of groups have started springing up like this, that used to be really common with like the Elks and the Moose Lodge, is communities centered around things that they like. So like CrossFit's big sell, aside from really hard workouts that tend to build really fit people, is a community that centers around that workout culture.
Yeah.
And that, like, when you go to a CrossFit box, they all advise everybody to be on the same diet and what that diet is and how to approach it. That's kind of when paleo really hit, was around the same time.
Okay.
And as far as I know, that's what CrossFit boxes really suggest, which makes sense. Meat and vegetables is kind of the main things you need to be eating. One could argue just meat, but
Yeah.
anyway. The thing that Sebastian...
You
Oh.
this is that's why you're fine.
You recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Okay.
Okay, and we're back. So, where I was the thing that Sebastian Junger touches on that I thought was really cool, and I actually read this after being inspired to do something that we're going to try to do this year, but the thing that he draws on is Indian tribes, Native American tribes.
Mm-hmm.
Get over it, I'm going to say Indian a lot. Is that Ben Franklin wrote a lot about how a lot of people would defect from civilized society at the time into the Native American tribes, and even POWs would be released and in a little bit of time go back.
Yeah.
And they would defect essentially into Native American culture and society. And almost never did that happen in reverse. Sebastian Junger couldn't find one example where that happened in reverse. Without force.
Well, yeah, but then force isn't really like voluntary. Like, these people weren't forced to go back. They were like, I don't like what I'm seeing around me. Back there, those guys were cool. I always had food in my belly, and
the tribes were super tight knit,
Mm-hmm.
and everyone cared about each other. And I think that is an advantage that a lot of people should seek to build on. I think it's something that benefits the whiskey tribe, for instance. Everybody has that one common interest, and it's why they outline all this stuff you can't talk about, right? Because it would divide the tribe.
yeah.
So it's not that they think you're wrong, necessarily, because they've been pretty good about not expressing their own views so much, unless it's complaining about whiskey-related laws.
Yeah.
But they stick to that thing, and they draw lines about, hey, let's not do this so we don't divide the group. And it's built a community that's really, really good, and they've done a good job of it. And I think that's important, the finding that one thing to bond over, and then reminding yourself that that is the paramount thing that binds you together.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people finding that, particularly with the things that interest them the most, the things that they like to do in their free time, helps create that now. And you can have it both online and in person. And so, rather than pining about the advances in society, we can actually take advantage of them and use them to build tribes that will benefit everybody. And the tribes may not like each other, but if we can, and that's a problem that I don't know how to address yet, but if we can remember that whole American thing first, then we can keep that infighting to a less violent level. And I think the importance of tribes, especially after reading Sebastian Junger's book and the hours and hours of video I've watched over the last few weeks on it, really helps people find meaning. I think another problem that's contributed to that, whether you're happy about this or not, is the lack of people going to church. People are flocking away from churches, and churches were another way to build community. Every Sunday you were in the same building with the same people, generally devoted to the same purpose.
Yeah.
And so it gave you a sense of community within your church. And now, with so many people not doing that, whether they still believe in that or they don't, and I'm not trying to debate that one here, it's one more bit of community that we've lost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and whether you believe in, Christianity or not, it's still generally a openly accepted place, or not accepted, but they're more openly accepting of just wayward souls, if you will.
Well, and the best ones are are good about understanding that the whole point of the Bible is all people sin.
Yeah.
For instance, I went to church with my father this morning. That is a Southern Baptist church. They are known for being particularly hard-nosed about the way they handle things. And that's ruling out the Westboro Baptist Church, because they're just a bunch of assholes.
Yeah.
Even though they are a Southern Baptist church, their old pastor, when I went there as a kid, was always like, we understand you're a mess, and that all of you are in some way broken and sin. Come here with your mess.
Mm-hmm.
Because all of us are sinning just differently. They now have a group to help gay guys reconcile their faith and the fact that the Bible sort of condemns being gay as a sin. And they touched on it even a little bit, where they were like, okay, just because the Bible says it's a sin doesn't mean you're going to hell for it. Like, that is not what your hell or heaven hinges upon.
Yeah.
And I like that about that church. And it surprised me because it's a Southern Baptist church, and they have that reputation for being so strict about their rules, that they were still understanding of that. And that's how you build communities like that. The unifying structure is more important than that stuff.
Yeah. That was one thing that, like, if you think about it, the whole Bible condemning gays, kind of really boggling,
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that turn of phrase is that came, like, Christianity came up, like, during, like, the same time as, like, the Roman Empire, and that was common practice.
In the late Roman Empire, yeah. Not as much early on.
Well,
but yeah, that's kind of the thing. And I think part of the reason that it's in there as something to be condemned is also part of the reason that the stories that are still in the Bible, because things have been cut, added, and edited, particularly by the Catholic Church, which isn't my favorite animal. The stories within the Bible, even if you choose not to believe them, do also seem to try to develop a path that allows the species as a whole to continue.
mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of why it condemns it, is that stops reproduction.
Yeah.
It stops the continuation of the species. But I don't think that's a huge problem that we need to address currently.
No.
But that's a theological debate. That's not what this video is about. The point is tribes and the community that the church provided that is not as common anymore.
Yeah.
Biker clubs have this.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that.
I think the little town we grew up in, Eudora, was kind of really... When we were kids, they were a lot tighter knit, but as the community is growing, I think the tightness of the community is also separating. Because they shut down Halloween one year for a football game. Cause
that's happened more than once in Eudora.
Yeah.
Because that's how into the football team they were.
Because everybody was going to be there supporting the one thing that night, and
people
I'm
that
sorry,
went to football
Tiny
games
Freddy,
weren't always
you
necessary.
don't get no candy.
Yeah. So our whole town would do Halloween on the 1st of November instead, because everybody was going to that game.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be something is like, as tribes get so big, they lose their cohesion. And that might be part of our problem too.
Well, I think that
they do still come together in Eudora in events that strain the community, though. Like when Bo Hobson was murdered.
yes,
I don't know anybody that wasn't outraged about that and didn't come together. The same with the kid that died in the daycare.
mm-hmm.
I don't want to bring in their family because the kid had a different last name than the family branch that I know. But we went to school with a couple of them. A buddy of ours that's blonde and was like 6'2" in 8th grade.
Oh,
is with one of them.
Okay.
And they do have a tendency to come together, and their police even are very community involved, and I know the fair really brings the whole town together still, and events like that help them keep that cohesion a little bit. So, which I do think is why it used to be stressed a lot more that people should be involved in their communities. Another thing about tribes that I found interesting in that Younger didn't really touch on is how the military creates tribalism within itself. They basically change your name. You're now called a rank and your last name instead of your first name.
Yeah.
They give you a new haircut. They give you all the same clothes.
Yeah.
That's something biker gangs have in common. They all do cuts, right?
Uh-huh.
Antifa even has a uniform. The Proud Boys have a uniform. Other major groups often have uniforms, and for whatever reason, something about that also helps develop group cohesion in tribes. The Freemasons have uniforms.
So you can tell who the enemy is.
Exactly. And you can tell who your friends are. And I think that's a part of it, is when you're part of a community that understands that unifying factor is the most important thing, when you see that someone else is a part of that same community, you trust them implicitly now. Because they also understand that the community comes first. Well, that the community is more important than the individual differences. Obviously, you've still got to put your family first and things like that, but but that the community is important, and that if someone is part of your community, you'll have their back even if you don't know them.
Yeah. On the uniform thing, a lot of this stuff I'm kind of processing as we're talking. And
that's what I like about our talk videos. We get to work through a problem a lot of times.
Like walking into a gas station or anywhere, you see somebody who is, like for me, if I see somebody who's wearing pants that are like pants and clothes that are just like 4 sizes too big, and they're like struggling to pull them up, you know, thugging looking, probably not going to associate with them or say hello or anything. But if I see somebody who's dressed, you know, just regular fitting pants and a t-shirt, and I might say hey, or
yeah, and that's the thing about the tribalism that I don't think we've touched on. It's an innate human thing that we do. Quality.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Is I think it's just like a really, really primal, early. What's the word I'm looking for? Instinct. There you go. To kind of do that, and I think that's probably why military and other groups will do that, and everybody.
That's a good point. For instance, if you see somebody wearing one of these, and then you see another guy dressed as you just described, regardless of if everything else is the same about them, you're going to judge those two people differently as to what you expect from them.
Yes.
And you're going to associate more with whichever one is more like you.
Like if I saw you like you are right now at a gas station, like you just walked in, I'm going to look out at the gas pumps, and I'm probably not going to expect you to be stepping out of the car you're stepping out of.
Yeah, you'd be expecting me to step out of something more like my truck.
Yeah. But if I see somebody, thugging looking, I'm looking for maybe an older Impala on like 24s or something, or
type of stuff my cousin used to drive, Scott.
Yeah.
When he had the Impala, it was on 24s or 22s.
I did see a. This is really off the actual subject, but it was a like a 70 Chevelle. With probably sitting on around 20s. This thing looked good.
Yeah, you can make it look good if you do it right.
They had the right wheels. They were wide, and they were set in deep. Like the actual part that bolts on to the hub was actually was set in, and it just looked good.
Well, that's like the new Camaros don't have the same kind of rally-looking wheels they did before. They're big wheels now too, and so you can do it well. But that is something else that you'll notice if you see a car. We look at all these visual cues so often, and we tend to associate that person with essentially a certain tribe. You see the Chevelle on 20s, and you see the Chevelle with rally wheels, and you immediately think two different things about those people. And that's not, the differences aren't necessarily bad, so long as you don't react immediately badly to that person.
Yeah.
But that doesn't. That also means that you're naturally going to be more withdrawn from one than the other. So, the whole reason, because I know we need to kind of wrap this up, that we bring this up at all is we're wanting to do something with Dirt Road Men that approximates a men's club in the vein of the Elixir Moose Lodge, and kind of centers around unifying factors like that all-American culture that we like, and gun culture, and whiskey, and cigars. A very, I don't know how to describe it. If I were to go to a particular person on social media that embodies this type of culture, it would be, again, Manspot type culture.
So jealous of his beard.
I'm jealous of his beard. I'm jealous of his car. I'm jealous of his car's headliner. I'm jealous of his hat.
I haven't seen
That's what I mean, though. I like so much about what this guy's doing.
I haven't seen his headliner, though.
It's an American flag.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah, see?
I wish I had a headliner.
The guy has guns. The guy's into eating primarily meat. He also likes whiskey. I don't know that I've ever seen him go into cigars, but Sean Whalen really likes cigars, and that's something that kind of drew me to him initially. And you see things like that, and so that's something we want to kind of try to form, and in a way that also helps make that community better. And we want to do it both online and in person, but we have to be really, really careful about the in-person thing, because if we create factions of Dirt Road Men, whatever that tribe-esque version of us would be called, and they do something stupid in one city that reflects badly on all of us, and in particular, the two knuckleheads on the camera.
Yeah. We don't want that, so...
Yeah. So we're going to have to step carefully, and I'm going to try to have us meet with a few people to think about that, or maybe talk to some people online. I may do some interviews even that I'll put on our channel if I get to do them with guys that have built communities and stuff like that as we go to build it out, so that you guys can see the process and see what we're trying to make. Because right now it's really in its inception. We're really kind of trying to form what we're going for here. So, anything else you wanted to add?
Not off the top of my head.
You look like you had something you wanted to say there, so.
My palm was itching.
Gotcha. Alright, well.
It's supposed to be a sign of money coming in, so.
My wife said that the other day, and I pointed out how many times her palms itched in our marriage that we were broke.
Hey.
Bitch can dream.
But I do have overall more money.
But did
than
you
when we
die?
started. No, not yet.
Was it on, were her palms itching always on a payday?
No.
Oh.
Alright, well, till we see you again, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jake.
We are the Dirt Road Men.
That one was loud.
Hey everybody, if you like this video, hit a like or dislike, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you really like what we're doing, check us out over on Facebook, where we post every day.